sleep paralysis. So I have experienced it fewer times than I can count on one hand, but I had one time that was it left a very deep impression on me. And I'll say that sleep paralysis can be several things. So it can be a biomechanical thing. So when we sleep, our body sort of becomes paralyzed, but then our mind can be awake. So there's that. And that can also happen because of disruptions in sleep cycles, or sleep deprivation, stress, mental illness, or biochemical changes and medications, etc. There's also another cause, is astral projection. So our energy body, it's tethered. I don't actually see like a cord. I've never actually seen that, but we leave each night and come back in when we wake up. And so it can be failed coming out, like you're awake but you haven't actually come out of your body yet, or you're trying to get back in and you're not fully back in yet, but you're kind of awake. So that's another sleep paralysis can be a dysfunction of an out-of-body experience, or an astral projections experience. And ways that can be decreased is resolving the issue of why it happened, but also spiritual cleansings, because like I said before, it's a layer of energy on our energetic parts, or on our energy bodies, and then they don't like rotate, or they're not as healthy, and they don't work as well. It's like a machine. It's like if you get sand in gears, and it's like doesn't work as well. So a lot of people do take spiritual baths before bed. A lot of people leave, if it is, the third thing that could be is a spiritual attack. So a lot of people do protections around their bedroom, crucifix. Put a crucifix under your mattress or just above your head of your bed. It can be made of holy wood, cedar. Cedar's high in camphor, someone was saying, and camphor also in a glass of water in the corners of the room. You could put a lemon cut in across, cut in four, and then on a plate of salt, and put that underneath your bed. A glass of water at the bedside helps filter in incoming energy and information and spirits that interact with us during sleep. And it's purifying. Of course, you're going to replace that every day. There's a lot of things that you can do to make your dream space in your bedroom a lot more protected, if that is the case. You want to have prayer as almost a reflex. So when you're in one of these states, then you can begin to pray, and that should lessen any anxiety, but also any spiritual oppression that is happening on you. You also want to try to relax as much as possible, because we get locked up when we're in that fear state. It gets you locked up, and becomes a lot harder to release that state. You want to try to wiggle your toe, maybe, if you can. It'll be the hardest thing in the world. And when it happened to me, my eyes were open and I could feel like tears coming down, and I wanted to scream, but I could not. So you want to just relax as much as possible, which is easier said than done, I know, but just recognize the state that you're in, step back, and then just try to pray if you can, and that should help release the state. A lot of people see things in the room, shadows, smoke. They have a feeling of impending doom, or like just malice, something that bad's going to happen. So that should help with that. My experience with dream paralysis is I was sleeping in a hospital, so again, like shift work and sleep disruption, and I was sharing, it was in a really old hospital built back in the 1800s. It didn't have any air conditioning, and it was all brick building, and we're sleeping in a room. I think it used to be an x-ray room, but they also had it was also a patient room at some time too, but it wasn't used for that anymore. And the place was said to be haunted. Up on the third floor there was an old operating room that people would go up there and do ghost hunting with some of the security guys, and all along the corridor they're all like pictures of nuns and stuff. And they said that if you went up there and you put a open Pepsi on the operating table, that there was a surgeon or something that haunted it up there and he would knock it over. And I never went up there because I was never really interested in checking that out. But the room that we would sleep in, oftentimes many people reported that they would hear knocking on the door, and they would hear the, I guess, spirit nun nurses say, your break's over, time to get up, you need to get up, the patients need you, etc. So they really didn't like us sleeping on the job, etc. So that happened to many different people on that ward. I also had a very psychic dream in that same place too, of something that actually had happened in the past on that ward. And when I told someone about the dream when I woke up, they were like amazed that I even knew about it, because it was quite scandalous actually. But what happened is I was sleeping in the room with this other girl. She was Filipino, so she was Catholic, and I got sleep paralysis, and I saw smoke swirling around on the ceiling, and I actually thought the building was on fire and I couldn't get up. And then I kind of fell back asleep again, and I saw these two nurses in their 20s. One was blonde, and they both were wearing completely black scrubs, and they said, you can take your break in here, or you can come down the hall with us, because actually down the hall on the left there was another actually more official break room that had like a fridge and stuff like that, and people slept in there too, because it actually was a very big floor and ward, etc. And we take like overlapping breaks, so we don't want to wake different people up, etc. So I saw the spirit nurses walk down the hallway, and then in my dream they went into the last patient room on the left. And then I woke up after all this happened, and the girl sleeping beside me was awake, and she was like totally freaked out, and I was like, what's going on? And she's like, I saw a nun kneeling over you praying. And at that time I hadn't entered into this tradition, and I found out later through my padrino that I actually do have a nun spirit guide, and I grew up Catholic, and when I was a child I actually wanted to go into becoming a nun, so that was pretty interesting to me. The first thing I did was, even before I did the things I needed to do, is I booked it down the hallway and went into that patient room, because actually I had that patient assignment. That patient room was my assignment, so I wanted to see what was going on in there. So I went in there, and the patient, it was a 4-bed room, but the patient that was next to the door, he was wide awake, and he was looking kind of freaked out too. And he actually had been paralyzed. He had Guillain-Barré, so it's a bacterial infection that makes you paralyzed from your feet up to your neck, and then when you're treated with antibiotics and stuff, then the paralysis reverses and goes back down again, but it attacks the sheath you have on your nerves anyways. He was freaked out, and I said, what's going on in here? And he said, someone in black came in the room and sat in that chair. And so I was like, oh, okay. I was like, it's probably just a bad dream or something. And because I didn't want to freak him out, so I took the chair out of the room and just made sure he had everything he needed and everything. But that kind of freaked me out because of the whole paralysis thing and what I saw in the people in black and everything. So it doesn't happen to me anymore. Other things do happen to me, of course, but that's just my advice and what my take on sleep paralysis is, and how you can deal with it.